Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8-Second Gaming, and in today's video we're going to be breaking down one tip for every legend. Because right now there are a ton of different legends in Apex, so by the end of this video you guys will have a bunch of brand new tips that you can bust out in your games. But just quickly, if you guys are looking to really improve at Apex and become the best player that you can possibly be, then you need to check out the GameLeap website right now. Over there we have top level coaches creating up to 10 guides a week that are all site exclusive, so you won't find them anywhere else. So click the link in the description, pick yourself up a membership, or I'll harvest your toes. But okay, let's jump right back into the legend tips, and to start off let's talk about Seer. For Seer, I see a lot of people wanting to open up fights by using his tactical ability. And while you do get the scan, it's actually better to save his scan for later on in the fight. If you crack somebody, or even better knock them, then you can either cancel a revive or heal with his tactical, continuing to give you the upper hand in the fight. So just save his tactical a little bit longer in fights. Next up we have Octane. Now there are a few different things that you can do with his stim that allow you to do a few extra little tidbits in the game. But one thing that not a lot of players know is his stim actually gives you the slightest little bit of extra climbing height. So if you're trying to get to a ledge and you're just barely out of reach, stim before making the climb and you will get the little extra bump up and you'll be able to get that ledge. Next up for Lifeline, when people go to res their teammates, they get caught in the animation and it slows them down on top of their teammate. That little bit of slowing down can cause you to be a sitting duck in a fight. What's better to do as Lifeline is to slide into your teammate and start the revive that way. When you're sliding, you don't get caught in the revive animation, you don't get slowed down, and you're a lot more elusive in those fights. Now for Valkyrie, a lot of people get caught with her jetpack animation when they're trying to fly up onto somebody. When they release the jetpack and try to pull their gun out, they get caught in that hand animation and that gets them killed quite often. But if you're close enough to a ledge, then you'll want to deactivate your jetpack to mantle the ledge. That will cancel her jetpack hand animation and make you pull out your gun a lot faster. This has saved me countless times in Valkyrie fights. Next up for Horizon, if you're ever in a door battle with somebody and you need to get them off that door, then you can actually use your tactical ability through the door to bump them off of it. Just throw it at the ground kind of beside the door and it will lift them off. You'll then be able to open up the door and peek in. Now next up for Rampart, I see a lot of people wanting to wait until her walls are fully activated in order to spin up Sheila and start shooting. But by that time enemies could potentially be peeking you, maybe get a lucky crack, or even destroy your wall before that happens. So what you should be doing is start placing the wall, and as it's building, pull out Sheila, start spinning it up and shooting it at the enemy. As you're shooting, the wall will fully deploy and give you the amped damage. And there will be no downtime between each shot. So you'll be shooting, doing a lot of damage, the amped cover will activate, and then you'll be doing even more damage with no downtime. Next up for Bloodhound, you can actually tell when an enemy player's revive card is about to time out. Whenever you kill someone, there will be a skull tracker that pops up on the ground. This is about the same time that it takes for the banner to time out, so as soon as that skull goes away, you know that their banner isn't available anymore and you can move on and not camp it. Now next up for Caustic, a lot of people want to use his ultimate aggressively because it is a great tool to damage enemy teams. But sometimes using it defensively is the better option. If a teammate goes down, you can pop your ultimate on top of them to help them from not being thirsted. It's harder for enemy teams to see them and they can't push on top of them. Plus, if you get a little bit of a break, you can use that smoke as cover and give a nice revive off. Next up for Mirage, I think a lot of people know that his decoys don't really send out at different speeds. But if you hold a grenade and send out a decoy, it actually runs faster, it starts sprinting instead, so if you want to send it out at a different speed, hold a grenade and then shoot it out. Next up we have Gibraltar. Now Gibby is an extremely popular legend in ranked games and a lot of people are opting to pick him up for their team comps. But something that I see way too often is people are way too gung-ho about throwing their bubble down in fights. If you're fighting against another Gibraltar, you always want to be the last team to bubble, because you want to be the ones that have the cover. So if you can force another team to bubble first, that is always the better option. Next up we have Bangalore. Now the most common tip for Bangalore players is to smoke the enemy team and not yourself. But sometimes in a game that's not possible, or sometimes you don't want to lose line of sight on the enemy team. So something that you want to look into doing is called a mid-range smoke. This is where you smoke a midpoint between you and the enemy team. It still blocks off line of sight for flanking, but it leaves a line of sight open for either your teammates or you to cover your teammates while they go on the flank. Now, next up we have Crypto, and Crypto lives and dies by his drone. If he doesn't have his drone, his entire kit is just essentially useless. So you guys need to be protecting your drone a lot more often. I see people throw it out for a fight, finish the fight, and then not worry about the drone. And if another team comes to third party, the first thing to go is the drone, leaving Crypto essentially useless in that fight until his drone is back up. So if your drone isn't sitting in a spot for a specific reason, then recall it so you can keep it safe, and if a fight breaks out, you'll have it ready to go. Now, next up we have Ashe, and I think a lot of people understand that Ashe's tactical ability is insanely broken in fights. You can use it to lock down players that are split off from their team. But another great way to use Ashe's tactical is as a recon ability. If you and a team are kind of in a stalemate and you want to see what type of armors that team has, then throw out Ashe's tactical ability. It's better than wasting a grenade on someone, and it can hit them around walls, so it's a lot better than trying to shoot them. You can then see what type of armor that enemy team has, and if you have the armor advantage on them, you might want to push them. Now for Pathfinder, I see a lot of people go for a grapple that they don't actually want to do. Sometimes it would send them too far, or they see an enemy team a little bit too late after the grapple's already connected. But not a lot of people actually understand that you can cancel Pathfinder's grapple. If you use whatever button you use to crouch, it will break the grapple. By doing this, you won't be sending yourself on a one-way trip back to the lobby screen, because you won't be flying headfirst into that random team that you saw at the last second. Next up for Loba, Loba is actually one of the best legends to practice the game with. One of the biggest skills in Apex is obviously your gun skill, but a lot of people spend way too much time in pub games looting up, trying to get the best guns, trying to get the best attachments, and by the time that they actually get anything, half the lobby's already dead. Loba allows you to kind of circumvent a lot of that time looting, so you can spend a lot more time fighting and not have to worry about running around an entire POI. So if you're looking to just get into a bunch of gunfights, try picking up Loba because she will allow you to fast track your way to those fights. Next up we have Revenant. Now Revenant's silence balls are extremely annoying to deal with in fights because Apex is very ability based, and if you don't get to use your abilities, then it's kind of annoying. But another thing that a lot of people overlook is the fact that Revenant's silence balls have a huge audio cue when you get hit by them. Now Apex already has a ton of audio issues, but if you're able to add to those issues, then you can take the upper hand in fights most of the time. Next up we have Mad Maggie. Now Mad Maggie is one of the best legends at storming buildings for one particular reason. Her ultimate breaks doors insanely quickly. So if you're in a fight as Mad Maggie, you crack someone, they go into a building and sit behind a door, what you'll want to do is throw your ultimate out preemptively at them. Not only will it break the door, allowing you a free access pass into the building, but it will also stop their heals and give you a speed boost so you can be on top of them extremely quickly. A lot of people try using the riot drill when someone's sitting behind a door, but it's better to use the ultimate because it throws them off guard a lot more often. Now for Newcastle, his revive is extremely amazing with the knockdown shield, but sometimes it leaves your back very exposed. So if you have a few seconds before you start to revive your teammate, what you'll want to do is throw your tactical down behind them and then have it move in a straight line backwards. You can then start to pick up your teammate with the knockdown shield and have both sides covered extremely well. Next up we have Fuse. Now in the heat of battle, it can be sometimes a little bit tricky to track your abilities and exactly when they will start to go away. So if you're using Motherload in a fight and you want to know when you'll be able to start pushing, it's right around the time that your ultimate charge has about 15% on it. So with that in mind, you can be right at the edge of the flames and push in exactly when they die down to catch your enemies off guard. Now next up we have Watson. Now one of my favorite things to do as a Watson player is to connect my fence nodes to enemy fence nodes. That allows me to place more fences down because I'm not using as many fence nodes. Something people don't know is that when you connect it to an enemy fence, it doesn't actually count as one of yours. So instead of having to waste 2 nodes to put a fence down, you're only using 1. And on top of that, if the enemy team that you're connecting the fence node to is still alive, they won't be able to shoot your node out because they can't break their own fence nodes. Only the enemy Watson will be able to do that. So when you can, always be connecting fence nodes to enemy Watson fence nodes. And finally, we have Wraith. Something that happens a lot in Apex is fights get drawn out in buildings, and sometimes you're not able to actually enter into that building. Maybe that team has a Caustic, maybe that team has a Watson, or some other reason. In certain situations, the circle might be closing, that building won't be in, and you know that team is going to have to run out of that specific doorway. As Wraith, what you'll want to do is start your portal inside that doorway. You can then run it to a desired location, maybe into your own Watson fences or Caustic traps, But as that enemy team is leaving the building, they will be forced to use your portal and go exactly where you want them to. Or they'll be forced to take zone damage, and if it's a later round, that can be game ending for them. There you guys have it though, one tip for every legend in Apex. But now I have a question for you guys. Is there a tip that you use on a specific legend that I didn't mention here? Let me know in the comments down below. But with all this being said, guys, I really hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did and you want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. Also, if you want to be notified when we post, ring that bell as well. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Second Gaming, and I will see you guys in the next one.